Hey guys, we are in day 76, Numbers 13 through 15, and Psalm 76. And this place we're in is called Kadesh Barnea. It is one of the most sobering and important stops that we will have here in the book of Numbers and the story of the people of Israel making their way to the promised land after God freed them from slavery. It's an intense section of scripture that I suggest you don't rush through, and you take time even beyond today to meditate on. The story is pretty straightforward. Remember where the people of Israel have come from. They've in 1 year they've seen God deliver them from Egypt, cross the Red Sea, get the manna daily, get water from the rock, get the 10 Commandments, the plague in Exodus 32 where they chose to build a golden calf. The threat of God not being with them, and then them begging him to stay with them. And then getting into Numbers, even in the last couple of days, focusing on how they complained, the price of their complaining, the quail, because what God had given them in their estimation wasn't good enough. Miriam and Aaron, there is not a reason. There's nothing in their life that should cause them to doubt God, whose presence is by the cloud by day and the fire by night. And yet you get to chapter 13 and it starts with the promise that God is giving them the land. It's already theirs. He's done everything to prove himself faithful. And 12 spies go in, one from every tribe. There's Joshua and Caleb, who are the only exceptions to the rule. The other 10 look at the giants in the land, and they see themselves as grasshoppers. And how many of us are looking right now at situations in our life that seem massive, and we look at ourselves as grasshoppers. So this is really convicting for me, and I'm sure for you too. And the result is disastrous. The few of those leaders come back and they're so negative and complaining that it spreads throughout the camp, and the people wish to go back to Egypt. Again, a deep mistake, and God is about to destroy them all, but for the intercession of Moses. Joshua and Caleb alone see clearly. They said the land is a good land. If the Lord delights in us, in chapter 14, he will bring us into this land and give it to us. And what happens at Kadesh Barnea, instead of going into the land, God gives them 40 years, one for every day that they went on this mission. And everyone in that generation dies except for Joshua and Caleb. The leaders die that day, and then no one of that generation would get to go into the promised land. A massive failure, but for the grace of God who stays with his people. In fact, chapter 15, one of the big evidences of God's grace and commitment to his people says, when you come into the land, you are to inhabit, which I am giving you. So God remains faithful to his promises. The big idea today is this: while sin always carries its consequences, God's faithfulness remains true to his people, even when we don't deserve it anymore. And how sobering and how good for us to meditate on this. There's a little incident about the man who gets stoned for working on the Sabbath, and I want you to consider that what he did was an act of willful pride. After knowing God's law and hearing God saying, you will die for your intentional sin, he goes out and picks up sticks as if in defiance to God. Are you living in defiance to God, or are you humbly submitting to his ways and believing that he can overcome every giant in your life, no matter how big they seem?